Welcome back, everyone. I'm Shatty. We spend so much time learning how to work and how to succeed, but we rarely learn how to love. Today is special. We are bringing together the collective wisdom of 6 love experts to share their top dating and relationship advice. Whether you're searching for the one or trying to heal a current connection, this is for you. If you're ready to grow, please like this video and subscribe to join our journey of purpose. Let's dive deep. We live in a world that is obsessed with finding the right person, but we spend almost no time becoming the right person. Think about it. We spend years in school to get a degree. We spend decades in the gym to stay fit. We spend hours scrolling through reviews just to pick a restaurant for dinner. But when it comes to the most important decision of our lives, who we choose to share our hearts with, we leave it entirely to luck or chemistry. We wait for a spark, we wait for a feeling, and then we wonder why, after the honeymoon phase fades, we feel more alone while sitting next to someone than we did when we were single. The truth that nobody wants to tell you is that love is not a movie. It's not a fairy tale that ends at the wedding. Love is a living, breathing entity that requires constant nourishment. And most of us are starving our relationships because we simply don't have the tools to feed them. We are using outdated maps to try and find a destination called happily ever after, and we are getting lost in the process. We struggle with the same arguments, the same insecurities, and the same patterns of heartbreak over and over again. But what if you could sit down with the greatest minds in human connection? What if you could bypass years of trial and error and go straight to the heart of what actually works? In the next few minutes, we aren't just talking about dating. We are talking about the architecture of the human soul. I've gathered the most profound insights from 6 world-class love experts, people who have dedicated their entire lives to studying why some couples thrive while others wither away. If you stay with me until the very end, you aren't just going to get tips, you are going to get a shift in perspective that will change the way you look at every person you meet. You will discover why your past relationships failed, and more importantly, how to ensure your future ones succeed. This is a masterclass in the one thing that matters more than anything else: our ability to love. Beloved, if you are ready to move from accidental love to intentional connection, then this is the most important conversation you will ever listen to. Because a life without love is just a life, but a life with conscious love is a masterpiece. Imagine for a moment that you are building a house. You wouldn't just throw bricks together and hope they stay up because you felt like they belonged there. You would need a blueprint. You would need a foundation. Yet when it comes to our hearts, we build on shifting sand and wonder why the walls crumble when the first storm hits. Today, we are changing that. We are looking at the blueprints. I'm sharing the collective wisdom of 6 love experts who are going to show you exactly how to build a love that lasts. If you want to stop the cycle of heartbreak and start building a sanctuary of connection, you need to hear every single word of this. Because the advice you miss might be the very tool you needed to save your future. The first expert tells us that loneliness is not cured by another person. It is cured by self-connection. If you enter a relationship to fill a hole in your soul, you aren't looking for a partner, you're looking for a distraction. True love happens when 2 whole people decide to share their overflow, not when 2 half people try to complete each other. The second expert dives into the myth of the spark. They argue that the intense, heart-racing chemistry we often seek is actually a red flag of anxiety, not a green light for soulmates. Real love feels like peace. It feels like coming home. It's a slow build, not a sudden explosion. Our third and fourth experts focus on the language of love. They remind us that we often love people the way we want to be loved rather than the way they need to be loved. Communication isn't just about speaking your truth, it's about creating a safe space for your partner's truth to exist without judgment. The final experts bring it all together by focusing on evolution. A relationship is a place where two people go to grow. If you are afraid of change, you are afraid of love. You have to fall in love with the person your partner is becoming, not just the person they were when you met them. My friends, love is a daily choice. It's a practice of patience, a practice of presence, and a practice of purpose. These experts have given us the tools, but you have to be the one to pick them up. If this resonated with your soul today, please like this video and subscribe to join our journey here. Let's commit to being students of love, not just seekers of it. Remember, you are worthy of a love that is kind. You are worthy of a love that is consistent. And most importantly, you are worthy of the love you give to yourself. Live with purpose. Love with intention. We have been conditioned to believe that love is something that simply happens to us, like a sudden downpour or a strike of lightning. We grow up on a diet of stories where two people lock eyes across a crowded room, and in that single instant, their destinies are sealed without them having to lift a finger. This narrative is beautiful, but it is also one of the most damaging illusions we carry into our adult lives, because it suggests that love is an accident of fate rather than a conscious skill that must be studied and refined. In every other area of our lives, we accept that master grade requires effort. If you want to play a musical instrument, you practice the scales. If you want to excel in your career, you study the industry and sharpen your craft. If you want to be physically fit, you commit to the discipline of the gym. Yet when it comes to the most complex, delicate, and significant part of the human experience, our relationships, we assume that we should just know how to do it. We treat love as if it is an instinctual drive like breathing, when in reality, it is much more like a language that most of us are only speaking at a primary level. These love experts remind us that the feeling of love is the spark that starts the fire, but the skill of loving is what keeps the flames burning through the winters of life. If you rely solely on the feeling, you are at the mercy of your emotions, which are as shifting as the tide. One day you feel connected, and the next day you feel distant. And because you haven't viewed love as a skill, you assume the relationship is broken when in fact you simply haven't learned how to navigate the terrain. Learning the skill of love means learning how to listen, not just to the words being said, but to the unmet needs hiding beneath them. It means learning the skill of regulated responses when your ego wants to react in anger. It means practicing the art of curiosity over judgment. When we view love as a skill, we stop blaming our partners for not being perfect, and we start looking at our own ability to contribute to the harmony of the union. We begin to understand that a great relationship is not something you find, it is something you build with a set of tools you have to be willing to pick up every single day. This shift in perspective is incredibly empowering because it moves you from being a passive observer of your romantic life to being the conscious architect of it. You stop asking, where is the right person? And you start asking, am I developing the skills to sustain the right person when they arrive? It requires the humility to admit that we don't have all the answers and the dedication to remain a lifelong student of human connection. Most of our struggles in dating and marriage stem from the fact that we are trying to solve high-level emotional problems with a zero-level skill set. We expect our partners to be our best friends, our passionate lovers, and our emotional anchors all at once. But we haven't practiced the patience or the communication required to hold all those roles. By treating love as a practice, you give yourself and your partner the grace to be imperfect. You realize that a bad day isn't a sign of a bad soulmate, but an opportunity to practice a new skill, whether that is forgiveness, boundaries, or empathy. This is the path from accidental attraction to intentional, lasting intimacy. The mirror effect is perhaps the most challenging and yet the most transformative insight in the realm of human connection, because it forces us to look inward when our instinct is to point outward. We often walk through life believing that our relationship struggles are caused by the people we choose, the circumstances we face, or the bad luck we've endured. But the truth is that our external reality is frequently a physical manifestation of our internal state. Every person you are drawn to, every conflict that repeats itself in your life, and every boundary that is crossed is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. If you do not feel worthy of respect, you will subconsciously gravitate toward people who validate that lack of worth by disrespecting you. If you are abandoned by your own self-care and your own needs, you will find yourself in partnerships where you feel abandoned by the other person. This isn't about blaming yourself for the actions of others, but about recognizing that your internal frequency determines the station you tune into. We cannot receive from another what we are unwilling to give to ourselves. If you are constantly seeking validation, you are holding up a mirror that shows a void of self-approval. When you demand that a partner makes you feel enough, you are placing a burden on them that no human being can carry, because you are asking them to fix a leak in a vessel that only you have the power to seal. The experts suggest that the spark we feel is often just our trauma recognizing someone else's trauma, a mirror reflecting our own unhealed wounds back at us. When you find yourself frustrated by a partner's emotional unavailability, it is often a mirror reflecting your own fear of true intimacy or your own history of shutting down when things get real. We tend to criticize in others what we are most afraid to face in ourselves. If you find someone too needy, it might be a reflection of your own suppressed need for connection that you've judged as a weakness. This mirror doesn't just show us our shadows, it shows us our potential. To change the reflection in the mirror, you don't try to fix the glass, you change the person standing in front of it. This means that the most important dating work you will ever do happens when you are alone. It happens when you decide to become the person you are looking for. If you want a partner who is kind, consistent, and emotionally intelligent, you must first cultivate those qualities within your own heart toward your own mistakes and your own growth. When you raise your internal standard of how you treat yourself, the people who treat you poorly will naturally start to feel out of alignment. You won't even have to force yourself to leave. You will simply no longer be a match for that energy. The mirror effect teaches us that a relationship is a laboratory for self-discovery. Every argument is an opportunity to ask, what part of me is being triggered right now, and why? Every moment of jealousy is a mirror showing us where we feel insecure or where we feel we are lacking. By embracing this perspective, you move from being a victim of your romantic history to being the master of your emotional evolution. You realize that your partner is not there to complete you, but to reflect you. And in that reflection, you find the roadmap to your own healing. This is the shift from seeking love to being love. And once that shift happens internally, The external world has no choice but to mirror it back to you in the form of healthier, deeper, and more conscious connections. We often confuse the fire of chemistry with the foundation of compatibility. Yet they are two entirely different languages of the human heart. Chemistry is that magnetic, electric pull, the spark that keeps you up at night, the butterflies in your stomach, and the feeling that you've known someone forever after just 1 hour. It is biological, it is chemical, and it is incredibly powerful. But chemistry is also a master of disguise. These love experts suggest that the very intensity we label as passion is often just our nervous system reacting to familiarity, sometimes even mirroring the chaotic patterns of our past. If you grew up in an environment where love was unpredictable, your brain might mistake anxiety for attraction. You meet someone who is inconsistent or emotionally distant and your heart races. You think it's love, but it's actually a stress response. Chemistry is the who that catches your eye, but compatibility is the how that sustains your life. Compatibility is about the quiet, unglamorous alignment of values, lifestyle, and vision. It's about how you handle money, how you want to raise children, how you navigate conflict, and how you spend a rainy Sunday afternoon. While chemistry is a feeling, compatibility is a fit. You can have world-class chemistry with someone and still be completely incompatible in the way you build a future. When we prioritize the spark over the foundation, we find ourselves in roller coaster relationships. High highs of passion followed by low lows of misunderstanding and resentment. The spark tells you that you want to go on a date. Compatibility tells you if you can build a home. The danger of modern dating is that we have become spark junkies, discarding potentially beautiful, stable connections because they don't feel intense enough in the first 15 minutes. We overlook the person who is kind, consistent, and shares our deepest values because they don't give us that dizzying rush of adrenaline. But adrenaline is meant for emergencies, not for a lifetime of partnership. True compatibility feels like peace. It feels like a deep, resonant exhale. It is the realization that your partner's way of moving through the world doesn't grate against yours, but complements it. These experts argue that while chemistry can be built and cultivated over time through intimacy and vulnerability, compatibility is much harder to manufacture. You cannot negotiate someone into sharing your fundamental values. You cannot compromise your way into wanting the same kind of life if your visions are diametrically opposed. When you choose a partner based on the spark, you are choosing a feeling that is designed to fade. When you choose a partner based on compatibility, you are choosing a teammate for the marathon of life. This doesn't mean love should be boring or clinical. It means that the most vibrant love grows in a garden that has been properly fenced with shared understanding. You need to ask the hard questions early. Not just, do I like how they make me feel? But do I like who they are when things are difficult? Compatibility is the bridge that carries you across the gaps that chemistry cannot jump. It is the shared language of us that remains when the loud noise of initial attraction settles into a comfortable, beautiful silence. By shifting your focus from the rush to the resonance, you stop chasing ghosts and start building something that can actually stand the test of time. You realize that the most romantic thing in the world isn't a spark that burns out, but a steady flame that keeps you warm for decades because it was built on a foundation that was meant to last. The anatomy of conflict is where most relationships either find their breaking point or their breakthrough, because we have never been taught that disagreement is actually an invitation for deep intimacy. Most of us enter a conflict with a biological win or lose mentality, where our ego takes the driver's seat and views our partner as an opponent to be defeated rather than a person to be understood. When a disagreement starts, our nervous system often goes into a state of fight or flight, and in that high-stress state, we lose access to the logical, empathetic parts of our brain. We stop listening to understand and start listening to find a gap in their argument so we can strike back. This shift from us to me versus you is the most destructive phase of any relationship, because once you are fighting to win, the relationship has already lost. These love experts suggest that the goal of a conscious relationship is not to avoid conflict, but to master the art of navigating it without leaving scars. A healthy relationship isn't one where there are no arguments. It's one where the arguments are handled with a sense of safety and respect. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective where you move from seeing the problem as something your partner is doing to you and start seeing the problem as something you are facing together. It is the transition from a defensive posture to a collaborative one. Instead of saying, "You always do this," which immediately triggers a defensive response, a conscious partner says, "I feel overwhelmed when this happens. How can we handle it differently?" This small shift in language moves the focus from blame to solution. It acknowledges that your feelings are valid without making your partner a villain. Conflict is often just a clumsy request for a need to be met, but because we don't know how to express that need clearly, it comes out as criticism or withdrawal. When your partner is angry, they are often actually hurting or afraid. But anger is a much safer emotion to show than vulnerability. If you can learn to look past the sharp edges of their anger and see the soft center of their pain, the entire dynamic changes. You stop reacting to their tone and start responding to their heart. This is the practice of emotional regulation, the ability to stay present and calm even when things feel heated. It means knowing when to take a sacred pause before you say something you can't take back. It means realizing that being right is never as important as being connected. The experts highlight that many of our repeated arguments are actually about the same underlying core wounds from our childhood that keep getting poked. When we understand our partner's history, we can have more compassion for their triggers. We realize that their reaction isn't always about the dirty dishes or the late phone call. It's about a deeper fear of being unimportant or unsupported. By shifting to an us versus the problem mindset, you create a sanctuary where it is safe to be imperfect. You build a culture of repair, which is the most important skill in long-term love. The strength of a bond isn't measured by the absence of cracks, but by how quickly and beautifully those cracks are mended. When you face a challenge together, you aren't just solving a dilemma. You are proving to each other that you are a team. You are reinforcing the foundation of trust that says, no matter how hard this gets, I am not your enemy and you are not mine. This level of conscious communication turns every conflict into a stepping stone toward a more profound, unbreakable version of love. A purpose-driven partnership is the ultimate evolution of love because it transcends the narrow focus of two people simply staring at each other and shifts the gaze toward a shared horizon. Most of us enter relationships seeking a sanctuary, a place to hide from the world, a person to comfort our fears, and a companion to fill our lonely hours. While these are beautiful elements of connection, they are often rooted in a consumer mindset, where we ask what the relationship can do for us rather than what we can create through the relationship. These love experts suggest that a partnership truly begins to thrive when it moves beyond the pursuit of individual happiness and into the realm of collective meaning. When two people are only looking at each other, the relationship can become claustrophobic. Every flaw is magnified, every mood swing is scrutinized, and the pressure to be the everything for the other person eventually becomes an unbearable weight. But when those same two people turn their attention outward and ask, "What is our shared mission in this world?" the dynamic transforms. Purpose acts as a gravity that keeps a couple grounded when the inevitable storms of life hit. It provides a why that is strong enough to survive any how. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to start a business together or move across the world to do charity work, although it certainly can. A shared purpose can be as simple as a commitment to breaking generational cycles of trauma in your family, a shared passion for creativity, or a mutual dedication to hospitality and building a community for others. It is the realization that your union is a third entity, a living, breathing force that has its own unique contribution to make. When you are driven by a shared vision, your petty arguments about the laundry or the dishes begin to lose their power because you realize you are part of something much bigger than your daily frustrations. You become teammates in a grander design. This alignment of values and goals creates a profound sense of security that goes deeper than physical attraction or emotional chemistry. It is the spiritual glue that holds people together through the day, decades. In a purpose-driven partnership, you aren't just falling in love with who the person is today. You are falling in love with the person they are becoming and the impact they want to have on the world. You become each other's greatest cheerleaders, not just because you love them, but because you believe in their contribution to the collective. This kind of love requires a high level of conscious communication and a willingness to put the mission of the relationship above the temporary demands of the ego. It requires asking the deep questions. What do we want our legacy to be? How do we want people to feel when they leave our home? What values are we most committed to defending together? When you define these things, you create a relationship North Star that guides you through periods of confusion or distance. Most relationships fail because they run out of fuel. The initial excitement dies down and there is nothing left to drive the car. But purpose is a renewable energy source. It regenerates itself every time you take a step toward your shared goals. It turns your partnership from a static agreement into a dynamic journey of growth and contribution. By shifting from a self-centered love to a mission-centered love, you discover that the greatest joy doesn't come from what you get from your partner, but from what you are able to give to the world because you have them by your side. This is the difference between a relationship that survives and a relationship that truly matters.